You're listening to Live from the Heartland. I'm Michael James, hosting this morning's edition, and I'm talking with Mary Sweeters, the Global Warming Organizing Manager for Greenpeace. You mentioned Congressman Dingell, and I know he's been challenged on a number of fronts lately.
Yep.
What is being a congressman from the state of Michigan and dealing with auto industry in a lot of ways and being vested in that? How has he been as the chairman of, what's the technical?
The Energy and Commerce Committee.
Energy and Commerce. How has he been in terms of environmental issues in the past, and what kind of change, if any, resulted from your work?
Sure. Well, Congressman Dingell has actually done a number of great things on the environment in regards to conservation. He's done a lot to protect a lot of the wetlands areas around Michigan along the lakeshore, and I know that's very important to him. He's an outdoorsman, but unfortunately, he just has not been aggressive enough and has not been forward-thinking enough in regards to climate legislation. So obviously his ties to the auto industry, I think, make a conflict there. and so we wanted to see stronger bills that would make cars more efficient. We want to see investments in renewable energy on a national level. And Congressman Dingell just wasn't leading the way. He was actually, in fact, kind of more of an obstruction to real progress. And so, looking into 2009, Henry Waxman, who's been a real champion, he's written the strongest bill so far in the House of Representatives on climate change. So we're really looking forward to having his leadership and seeing him pass some good work.
So Greenpeace would be supportive of the transition from Dingell as the chairman of the Environment and Commerce Commission to Henry Waxman.
Yeah, we're definitely looking forward to Waxman's leadership.
Do you have any insight about how that change came about? What were the forces in Congress and who lined up in which way?
I don't know all of the details. I do know that pretty soon after the election, Waxman challenged Congressman Dingell to the chairmanship, and I think each of them worked to shore up their colleagues for support. But at the end of the day, Waxman had more support. So I think it was just time for a change.
Mary Sweeters, any take from you or Greenpeace as a whole on Obama appointments to, particularly to areas that would be of interest to Greenpeace?
Yeah, well, he has made appointments already for energy. Actually, I know you're a Berkeley alum. He picked a faculty member from UC Berkeley to head up the Department of Energy. And I don't actually know a lot about that faculty member, the new head, but we're definitely looking forward to him working with some of the best minds in the country to really put forward a really strong energy plan. So.
One of the things that you were talking about was science, and having science play a greater role in decision making around law and what gets enacted by Congress. Share with our listeners a little bit about the lack of science, perhaps, in decision making during the last 8 years of the Bush administration, and the hopes for a greater role of science in future decisions.
Yeah, it's been a big problem in the last 8 years. Obviously, the Bush administration has really been an obstruction toward any progress on climate change. The Greenpeace is advocating for legislation for the United States to pass laws that are based on the sound science that scientists have basically been working on and coming out reports with for the last 20 years. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is the United Nations body on the scientific body on climate change, they have been releasing reports since 1988 that have gotten stronger and stronger in their tone with how important human activity is and how much it contributes to global warming pollution and to the phenomenon of global warming. And the Bush administration has really refused to do what is necessary to address the scientists' concerns. We pulled out of any international treaty work back in 1997. Well, 1997 was when the Kyoto Protocol was introduced in 97, but then we pulled out as soon as Bush came into office. And since then, the science has gotten stronger and the voices of science have gotten louder and louder, saying we do need to make action. Here's what we need to do to avoid the worst impacts of global warming. And unfortunately, the Bush administration has just turned a blind eye to that. And so now our global warming campaign specifically is really looking to Congress in this upcoming year, to President-elect Obama, to do what science actually needs to be done. We don't want legislation that's based on politics and wrangling. It has to be done based on science. We have a small window of opportunity, and we can make it happen, but it just needs to be based on what science says needs to happen. We need to be reducing our global warming pollution by 80% of 1990 levels by the year 2050. And that's really the key target right there. And there are a lot of different ways that we can do that, but that's the goal. And to actually hit that, we have to have short-term targets. And that means that we need to be reducing our global warming pollution 25 to 40% of 1990 levels by the year 2020, which is coming up pretty soon. So we really need to have a good plan in place to do it.
Let's talk about the state of global warming.
Sure.
How serious is the problem these days? I mean, for a number of years under the Bush administration, it was to use that old phrase, it was poo-pooed.
Yep.
And they denied it, and they thought it was just part of a natural cycle of things. A lot of us, despite the cold weather that we're getting here, we paid attention and know that there is a serious threat of global warming. It affects us in so many ways. Share with us some of the ways that we are affected by global warming, the actual state of global warming, and we'll then move on from there.
Yeah, definitely. It is a very serious problem. I would say it's the single most serious environmental problem that we are facing as a planet right now. And we see impacts ranging from increased flooding. Hurricanes are becoming greater in intensity and frequency. Droughts. We saw droughts just last year in the southeast that were record-breaking. Georgia had a state of emergency. Droughts are happening throughout the world. Developed nations especially are being hardest hit. There are even islands out in the Pacific that are literally calling on other countries to help them because as glaciers melt and ocean levels rise, their countries are literally disappearing. Right.
I saw an article about that. They were collecting money and building up the island, making it taller.
Right. And it also just things like in our own backyards that we can see here, warmer winters, especially here in the Midwest. Obviously, it's something we're all used to, and but as winters get warmer, things like the Great Lakes are definitely affected. Increased evaporation during the winter. If the lake is not frozen over, water is actually evaporating, and that obviously affects wildlife. That affects tourism. It affects our winter-based economy. So right here in our own backyard, we're definitely feeling the effects.
You talked about the levels of global warming, and you used the year 1990.
Yep.
And then we're moving to the year 2020 to improve it.
Right.
What are the increments? What are the really, I guess I really want to know what ways are we going to prevent more global warming? How can this be either slowed down or actually reversed?
Yeah.
From major macro decisions, whether it be the kind of energy we use and emissions, et cetera, to the little folks, the ordinary people who actually did elect Obama,
right?
To make a real change on this front.